Hi, this is Dr. Nicki, and I'm here today to talk with you about the critical areas in fourth grade. The first one comes out of operations and algebraic thinking, and it's really getting kids to understand and have a really solid foundation with multi-digit addition and subtraction. Now, one of the things that we know about fourth grade is those kids, some of them come and they don't even know how to add two-digit numbers. So really make sure your kids understand two-digit numbers, three-digit numbers, and then, four-digit, five-digit numbers. They need to understand how to add and subtract multi-digit numbers in a variety of ways, including traditional method, or what the Common Core calls general method, as well as specialized strategies. And we'll be looking at all of that in the video. The second critical area is fractions. Fraction equivalence, huge. Can't get enough of it. You're going to need to teach it all year long, incorporate it in your daily routines. Children need to understand how to add and subtract fractions. It's a big piece of it. And they also have to know how to learn how to multiply fractions. The next critical area is geometry. And as always, geometry critical area throughout all the grades. Students have to understand shapes. There's a big emphasis on properties and attributes, and so students really have to understand, what perpendicular lines are, what parallel lines are, what symmetry is, the hierarchy of quadrilaterals. All of that kind of stuff comes into fourth grade as critical areas. Throughout this video, we will look at a variety of ways to teach those critical areas in the fourth grade. All right, this is Dr. Nicki, and I am back here with you. I'm going to be talking really about the fourth grade critical areas, and I wanted to focus on that first one of understanding and fluency with multi-digit multiplication. Now, in the Common Core, it specifically names three things: area model, array model, and equations. And I don't see a lot of people using the area model, so I want to talk about it and talk about how to start building it from the concrete through the pictorial to the abstract. And so you're going to have to take out the base 10 blocks. If you don't have any, go get some. And so what this model does is it says, say we have 11 times 12. So we have 11, it's 12. You set up your factors on the outside of the grid, and now you're just going to build within this area to show what 11 times 12 looks like. So you have 10 times 10, which is 100. You have taken 11 times 12 and you use the distributive property, so you're breaking it up. And in middle school, they call this FOIL, right? That term, first, outer, inner, last. But this is really kind of the concept of FOIL. So you have your 11, which is a 10 and a 1, and you have your 12, which is a 10 and a 2. And then you're going 10 times 10 is 100. And then you're going 10 times 2, right, is 20. And I oftentimes I want to just switch some of this stuff because I use different colors, if it's possible, for your factors and for your product, just so the kids can really see it. And then you have 1 over here. So you have 1 times 10, and that's going to be 10. And then you have 1 times 2, and that's going to be 2. And so you see you have built it, and you put them all together, and it should fit together like a puzzle, right? It's always going to be rectangular, and that's your product. So my product is 100 plus 20 plus 10, which is 30, plus 2, 132. So that's the area model. You do that first at the concrete level with your base 10 blocks, and then you move on to another model. Now, you want to check that with paper and pencil. So here's a paper and pencil version of that. Here's, traditional method. In the Common Core, they call traditional method the general method, right? The way that we all learned how to do it. And then you can also do it with partial products. So you have your 2 and your 20 and your 10 and your 100, just how we had here, your 100 and your 10 and your 20 and your 2. So you want, I like writing it out in traditional method and in partial products so kids can see what that looks like. But you also have the box method where you have 11 and 12, and you break it up just like we did here, only this is the pictorial representation of that. We have 10 and 1 and 10 and 2. We have 10 times 10 is 100, 10 times 2 is 20. And then 1 times 10 is 10. 1 times 2 is 2. And then you have 110, 20, 30, 2, 132. So concrete, pictorial, and then abstract. Again, I want to emphasize concrete, pictorial, abstract. The Common Core says area model, array, and then the equations. So you want to make sure that you're presenting that in all of the methods. After you do that, right, then you are going to look at division. Now, division is a little more tricky. It's really not that tricky, though. So say you have a dividend of 132. So I have the kids count that out. Remember, I like my factors and my products and my dividends and my dividers and my quotients and all that to be different colors. So this is my dividend, 132. Now, my divisor is going to be 11. I want to see what is 132 divided by 11. So what you do is you build out. Okay. Now, notice, I can't just build. It's got to be, again, that rectangle, right? And so I'm actually able to make the rectangle complete with everything that I had in the middle. And now I'm going to build this out up here. So I get that 10, and then there's 2. So I can see 2 is my quotient. So I can see that if I have 132 things and I divide them by 11, I get 12 as the quotient, right? And if I count this, that's 12 groups, right? So 132 divided by 11 is going to give me 12, right? 12 groups of 11. And so that's how you want to teach division, area model. Common Core says to do that. Okay. Now, there's other ways to teach division as well, and you're going to want to teach some of those ways. So I actually wrote some of them out, and we're going to look at what that looks like. One of the things I did before we actually look at that, I want to show you, I use this base 10 grid paper. You can get it off of Vanderwall's site. And the model that we just did, the area model, I use base 10 paper to show what it looks like. Definitely get base 10 paper. Here's another model of the, some people call this the box method of multiplication, but it's an array. It's called an open array in many circles. All right. Now, I want to talk a little bit more about division. Okay. Division. The first thing we do wrong when we talk about division, we always do this. I mean, I hear this in classrooms all the time. Teachers say you give a child 205 divided by 4. Teachers say, well, 4 doesn't go into 2, so we're going to go to 20. That is so wrong, and you should never say 4 doesn't go into 2. You always have to think place value. This is not a 2, it's a 200, and 4 does go into 200. Right? You can pull all kinds of 4s out of 200. What we're saying is that this is the hundreds place, and that you cannot pull 4 100s out of 205. That is what we're saying. So let's be really clear about that. So one of the ways to kind of combat that inappropriate place value language is to start with equal groups. And I always do it with money. I tell the kids, you know what, there's $205, there's 4 people, how many can each person get? This is called a strategy, a specialized strategy, because there's lots of ways to divide this up. You don't have to do it one way. You do have to get one right answer, but you don't have to do it one way. So we have $205. Okay, what if we give each person 50 to start with? If we give each person 50 and we take 200, we have 5 left, and then we're going to give each person 1. If you're in 4th grade, you're not going to worry about decimals. If you're in 5th grade, you are, because decimals is a huge critical area in 5th grade. So we know that it's 51. Now, you can also show the kids this, right, with the general method. Okay, so, but this equal groups is a really good way to start, right, and before you look at general method. By 4th grade, kids should know both specialized strategies and general method. Okay, so let's look at another example. Here's another equal groups example. 505 divided by 6. You draw 6 circles, and I just took 80. I could have taken 10. You could take any number you want, divide it out, and I had 480. I had 25 left. So then I gave each person $4, and I had 1 left. I'm not going to worry about that because it would lead me into decimals. But I had $84 and some change, and I'm not worrying about the change right now. So 84. 505 divided by 6 is 84. And this is equal groups. It's the equal group division method. It's a great way to build conceptual understanding. The next method is decomposing the dividend. And I really want to just give honor and where it's due. And Christine Mulgrave really introduced me to a lot of methods, and I want to thank her for that. And decomposing the dividend is one. I really like this one, actually. It's 505 divided by 6, and what you do is you decompose your dividend to get a friendly number, right? And so I decomposed my dividend into 480 plus 24 plus 1, and so now that equals 505, right, divided by 6. But 480 is a lot friendlier number to divide 6 by, because then I can get 80, and then I can divide 24 by 6, and I can get 4, and then I have that remainder 1. So decomposing the dividend, a great way to teach kids to divide. Again, a specialized strategy. Okay. And then there's short division. A lot of people in different countries divide this way. Short division, I find that kids love it. They get it really quick. On my blog, if you look under algorithms, there's a lot of these examples, so you can see them, different ones. In short division, what you do is you actually do a lot of skip counting. So kids who have counting down can build on that. So you would go here to, we can't take 6 100s out of 500, so we go to 50. We're looking at 50 tens, and we go, you skip count. You go 6, 12, and you go see how many, all the way up to, how many to 50, the closest you can get to 50. And so we got to 48. And so what we do is we put 8, because that 8 represents, you were allowed to take 6, and then 12, and then 18. So you had the kids count up the lines, and they say, okay, there was 8, and really that's 80, right, to be really clear. And then what they have left over, they put in the next column. So you're going to regroup those 2 tens that were left over, and you have 25 now. And so you have 25 ones, and you have 6, and then 12, and then 18, and then 24. And then so you're going to take that 4 and put it up there, and then you're going to regroup again. If you're in 5th grade, you're going to do decimals. If you're not, don't worry about it. You just have a remainder of 1. That's short division. Okay. So when we're talking about 4th grade, and we're talking about a variety of strategies for multiplication and division, you really want to think about teaching kids not only traditional method, but also of other methods, a variety of strategies. The next big area is problem solving. And I'm going to do videos on problem solving, but just the one thing that comes up that's really important is multiplicative comparison problems. So there were 2 girls and there were twice as many boys, right? And you illustrate that with the kids, and then you use these little people from Lakeshore to actually tell a story. Or you can say, oh, there were, John had 3 marbles, and Carol had twice as many as he did, and you want kids to show what that looks like. Multiplicative comparison problems is what they're called, and they're introduced in 4th grade. Really important that kids know them. In the problem solving video, I'll talk a lot more deeply about them, but know that's a critical area for 4th grade. Now, the other critical area for 4th grade is fractions. Lots and lots of fraction stuff. And so you're getting kids to look at equivalents. I say you've got to pull out those circles, and you've got to pull out the strips and the bars and the squares, and you can Google that stuff. You can buy it, but you can Google it and just pull down the paper copies. So you want kids to see. I pull out a lot of different color markers. If I have a 4th and I add 2/4, how many do I have? 3/4. You want kids to be able to see that. I pulled these off mathatube.com, but you can pull them off of anywhere off of the internet. But the point is, you want kids to have visuals of adding and subtracting with like denominators. So that's, use those pictorial representations. And the other thing that kids have to know how to do is to multiply a whole number by a fraction. And you want them to be able to do it in lots of different ways. So here's an example of that. I have 4 times a half. You want kids to reason. What does that really mean? 4 times a half. So you have 4 groups of a half, right? So if you reason, if you have 4 50-cent pieces, what do you have? You have 2, right? If you are on the number line, you have a number line, and remember, a fraction is a number that sits on the number line. So 4 times a half, you're going to go into 4 groups and you get 2. Or if you do repeated addition, you have 4 wholes and you're having each of them, right? And that becomes 2. So you can either use a reasoning model where you contextualize it and you reason it. You can use a number line model. You can use a repeated addition model. There's lots of different ways to teach kids how to multiply fractions by a whole number. A definite, big, huge part. I can't stress enough how much of a huge part of the Common Core it is for 4th grade. It's a critical area. And here's just some other examples of teaching kids how to add fractions. So you want them to know it with an equation, you want them to know it with a pictorial model, and you want them to know it on the number line. All right. Now, the next critical area is shapes. Shapes is huge, and kids should know how to compose and decompose, to describe, to analyze, to discuss, and to classify 2 and 3D shapes. So this is where the hierarchy of quadrilaterals comes in, and you want kids to understand, that quadrilaterals are a lot of different things, that they're parallelograms, that they're kites, that they're trapezoids, and that parallelograms are rectangles, and that they are rhombi, and that they are squares. And so you get into all of that kind of stuff. Critical area, I'll definitely be doing other videos where we talk about some of that stuff, but you got to pull out the manipulatives and you got to pull out the Play-Doh. Why the Play-Doh? I talk about Play-Doh in almost every video because Play-Doh is huge and we need to bring it back. And the Common Core talks a lot about building, drawing, and analyzing 2D shapes. Building the shape. Build the shape with Play-Doh. Right? Whatever the shape is, build it with Play-Doh, right? And have the kids talk about the attributes of those shapes that they are building, right? This is what the core says, to build the shapes. The core also says to draw the shapes. Got to have kids talking about drawing the shapes. And the core also talks about symmetry as one of the critical areas in 4th grade. So you want to build, you want to draw, and you want to be able to discuss the shapes. These are the critical areas for 4th grade. On my blog, I have lots of activities to help you teach all of these critical areas. And as always, happy mathing.